So I'm working on this specific Onan generator here, the 2800 Microlite series. Before we get rolling too far, I want to let you know that the parts for this generator are no longer available nor supported by Cummins. The sales parts guy was able to give me part numbers for the brushes, the magneto pickup that I'm trying to replace, and also it gave me a part number for a coil if I needed that. But they don't support it any longer. They don't have the parts. There's no way they can get a hold of the parts, so I reached out to dozens of other parts places. They had the part number pop up on their search results. A couple said in stock, so I called them and they said, oh, we drop ship from Cummins based on availability. And I said, well, Cummins doesn't have them. They said, okay, well, we don't have it. So I let the customer know, and he went and looked also online, and we both ran a dead end. And even finding used parts was very slim. Even the used market were sold out or no longer available. So unfortunately for this unit, it's a goner. So unfortunately in this case, the parts support is no longer available. So this video is just going to be for educational purposes, so you can see the unit if you have a used one you're working on, kind of know what you're looking at and what you're into. But as far as getting support for parts, we couldn't find any. So good luck to you, and I hope this helps. But I want to let you know before you get too far in that you can't find parts for these things through any of your standard sales portals. So thanks, guys. Box on top of box on top of box. Tester, puller hardware, grease. I've got every other tool out in the book here. I need to get back in its case. Hammer, tapping block there so I didn't mess up my puller. Miscellaneous tools, nuts and bolts need to go back in their holders. That goes for the generator. Tap box down here, and my 3/8 set, my air nozzle. So yeah, got the whole toolbox out for this one, seems like. Get it all out. I've seen other videos online that goes over all these control components, so I'm not really going to do that a whole lot. Besides, if you want to see it, it's just the fuel pump here. You've got your starting relay here, and these are all your battery leads here, fuel line, and the ground is actually a hard strap that bolts to the plate on the other unit there itself. But I've removed this section and I have pulled the generator from its crate. So this is what you're left with. I've got it suspended right here for you. Just try to ignore everything else. I've got to get in behind here right now, behind the flywheel. What the problem is we're not getting a spark. So this is the wire that goes into your coil pack. Coil pack sits right here. You've got the actual unit is grounded to itself through these, and you've got your spark plug lead. Then you've got this little terminal right here. That little terminal comes from here. Now this is labeled as a G, take my word for it because it's blurry, G2-2. Now if you look, you can't see this in the big belly pan. So for anybody that's curious about what goes on under the belly pan, oil pressure switch right here that is tied into this connector here. I just disconnected them for the moment because I did some testing on the oil pressure switch to see if it was working as it sits, but that's another story. Underneath you'll see this wire harness runs all the way under here, and then once it gets here it goes to the front harness, which then goes to all these components here that were hooked up. But what I'm looking for is this little wire which goes to the coil all the way over here. Try to get this continuous. Not getting you seasick. It runs in here and goes to a magnetic pickup in here. Why I'm chasing this down is if you look on the specs of this engine, this wire here, you put the positive lead on your multimeter in here and just put the negative on a good engine ground. You'll turn your tester to AC range. And cranking, I don't have, this was yesterday when I tested this, but the exact spec I think is anywhere between 25 to 60 volts AC after cranking for about 10 to 15 seconds. And this was reading 0.125 volts, very, very, very low voltage. and it didn't build or anything, so I've got a bad pickup in here. So what makes this really great is I need to pull this flywheel, which is, you know, it's not a big deal. I've got pullers and stuff, it's no problem. The only problem I noticed is this. You look inside of these holes on this flywheel, they are unthreaded. There are no threads in there whatsoever. So what I'm gonna have to do to pull this is I'm gonna have to tap these holes to fit the bolts for my puller. So what I'm gonna do is run the appropriate size drill bit in here first, just to clean these up in case these casted holes. They might have been machined at one time, but I know we've got some buildup in here, and just to make sure, I'm just gonna drill as far as I need to. I'm not gonna go through the body of the flywheel just until these holes dead end. So clean these up. I'm gonna tap these to fit the bolts in my puller. I'm gonna find which bolt will be the best fit for this, and I'll match it up with the tap I've got, and we'll get this to come off of here, and I'll get to see if what's going on back here, because there's a lot of wires running back here for the generator unit itself. Because with these Onan units, you notice how the engine is here and the generator unit's here, the flywheel's here, so all the electric production happens in this bell unit here, I'm calling it. But so there's going to be other things in here besides my pickup, but unfortunately to get to my one pickup I've got to get in here. So if you were curious on what you're up against on an Onan generator, this 2800 series, this is what you're looking at. One little tidbit I wanted to add was that wire coming from the pickup, this guy right here. I looked for anything that would tone out to ground. I looked for continuity with the positive. So I wasn't reading any voltage through this wire as it sits with the engine off, and I also was not reading a short to ground. So that's something you want to check too, is to see if there's a break in the wire, because it might not be a problem at your pickup. But I verified that there's no break in that wire. I was reading a low voltage while cranking, so that tells me that current is passing through the wire, which tells me it's not broken, but I believe it's in the pickup itself. So I just want to throw that in there, because you don't want to go down this path if you're just chasing a bad connector, or, you know, a short to ground. Yeah, a short circuit or a short to ground. So that's the reason I came to this conclusion. I already tested the coil out. There are specs online for the coil. You'll go from black terminal on this ground screw to the hot terminal on your input here, and your ohms resistance rating I will pop up here in this video. So you're going to test that as it sits, and then it's going to ask you to leave your ground terminal on this pin, and you're going to place the hot inside here, inside the spark plug wire boot there, and you're going to read a ohms rating of what I post over here. And if you are below spec, there's a chance that your coil pack has failed. But this one, however, it was within spec, so I believe that this coil pack is okay. But then that's when I checked that wire and saw that it was way out. It wasn't producing the voltage that this coil pack needs to actually fire. So that's where I'm at. Drill tap chart says for a 3/8 16 thread, I need to drill a 5/16 hole. So I have my 5/16 drill bit here, which is going to get me the proper hole I need for my 3/8 tap. You can put stops on here if you want to, but just be smart. I'm just going as deep as I need to. One thing you'll notice too is this particular tap for doing this blind hole. It's not a through hole. It's tapered, so you can start the hole easy and it cuts a little bit as it goes. Problem is, my full thread depth can only go to about 1/8 inch or so from the end, maybe closer to 1/4 if I look back here. But either way, I've got a good amount of threads in here. I got a little bit of, still gotta clean out some of these. But now I've got good thread all the way back in there. Apply a little bit of grease to the threads. This just ensures that all my rotational force is going to go into pulling this flywheel instead of gripping inside of the puller body here. What I usually do, get a little tension on them. That's it. She's off. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. So you run the risk of destroying these things if you try to get a big jaw puller on the 3 sides. I'm telling you from experience, because I broke a bobcat pulley. I didn't have the right puller for it. I was like, well, I got a jaw puller, so I put the jaw puller out here. The problem is I put so much flex force on these, and it was a material like this. This looks like it's either made of aluminum or magnesium, but it's not steel. And the fact that it is cast and not machined, they're prone to breaking because they're very hard. They don't have much flex. Once it goes, it breaks. So you've got to drill these holes, tap them, get the right puller on here, and off she comes. Here's the magnet, full of a bunch of crap. And our ignition pickup is right here. So something in this unit itself, in this coil pickup, has gone bad. So I'm looking right here. It's a solid wire. I've got a little chaser around it coming from the pickup. Got a G2-1 solid here, and my coil wire was a G2-2, and it looks like this little yellow guy runs up to the G2-2 here. So I'm going to check this connection first, see if anything is fried in here. See if anything is fried in here, and if it's not, I've already got this off, so we're going to go ahead and we'll see if there's any spec on testing these pickups, other than the fact that when I read it coming out of the G2, it was sporadic voltage. So it looks like, unfortunately, the only way to get that off is from the backside, because, you know, why not? It looks like this plate, which is going to suck. I have to redo my mounting, but I think I'm okay now. These screws have to come out along this bell, I'm calling it here, this housing, this bell housing. So these come out all the way around. Now I'll get this whole plate to come off here, and what should come with it is the wire. Yeah, they should all split pretty well. So we'll take care of that. So I have to take the starter off. No, the starter can hang out there with it, I guess. Ain't gonna hurt nothing. I just gotta unbolt it, unwire it. It is what it is. And the only thing that looks kind of iffy is this little rusty bolt here on the top. I'll make sure it's clean. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see how all I see is the back side of these threads. I gotta take this off. Hopefully that bearing there is not gonna fight me getting it off. A little bit of rust around there. I might spray a little bit of penetrating oil, but not go too crazy with it. But then all your generator components are going to be in there. So there's your windings there for your main generator, and all your different wires and what have you in there that do all your AC voltage production. But we're not getting any spark, so this is going to be the culprit here. That magnet is riveted on there, and I don't see any damage to the magnet. It doesn't look like it's come unglued. Looks like it's just dirty. But we'll get this cleaned up, and now I get to see where I can get this thing ordered from after checking some of the other wires on here. So there's one of your brushes right here. You can see it in there, and that's going to ride on that rough looking armature here. So the porcelain isolator. And there's a couple brushes in there. See that? So the brushes aren't down to 0. They're not gone. But that's not going to affect my engine spark. It's going to affect your voltage production in there. I don't know the exact science behind it. Don't hold me to it. But I just know that's not getting ignition. So we'll find out what the parts are. I order a set of brushes. Most likely we'll order a set of brushes. Replace them while I'm here, because you've got to get to this point to change brushes. Now's the time to do it. So I'll change the brushes out, and see if we can find this pickup. And then once we get the parts, we'll be able to rock and roll. But I still have to take that plate off, so more time just in the teardown. They'll be a little faster going together, hopefully. I can't imagine what these RV places charge for these things.